Welcome to this webinar on home languages and home. This webinar is a collaborative effort from a number of people. I'm Anne Devitt. I'm a lecturer and director of research at the School of Education. I'm currently principal investigator on a funded project on family digital literacy, which is Dr. Francesca Lamorgia is lecturer in language development at Ulster University and Frebel Department of Primary and Early Childhood Education at Maynooth University. She's the founder and director of Mother Tongues, a not-for-profit organisation that promotes multilingualism in Ireland. Cathal O'Gorman is a junior infants teacher from Griffith Barracks Multi-Denominational School. He's been teaching there since 2005 and has taken on a number of different areas in the school, including special education needs and reading recovery. And he has been involved in a number of best practice examples of work with mother tongues on integrating multilingualism within the infant classroom. Aideen Kelly is principal of St Mary's Primary School on Dorset Street in Dublin's North Inner City, a school where over 85% of children have English as an additional language. And there's some lovely examples of excellent practice in multilingual classrooms from Aideen's school on the NCCA website linked to the primary language curriculum. And finally, we have Dr. Deirdre Kirwan, who was principal of linguistically diverse primary school for 28 years. 80% of the pupils had English as an additional language. There were more than 50 languages represented in the school. Deirdre led an integrated approach to language teaching and learning that supported the use of the pupils' home languages. She's contributed to the new primary language curriculum with the NCCA and the European Centre for Modern Languages on the topic of plurilingual education at primary level. Her most recent publication, co-authored with David Little, is a must-read for anyone looking at multilingualism in the Irish primary context, or indeed in any primary context. And it's called Engaging with Linguistic Diversity, a Study of Educational Inclusion in an Irish Primary School. I am delighted to be working with this team of people here to put together this webinar on home languages and home learning. Just to tell you a little bit about where this came out of, I'm a principal investigator on a family digital literacy project that's funded by the IRC and is in partnership with NALA. And when COVID came and knocked all our socks off, we decided we wanted to kind of shift the focus of the project just to try and address immediate needs of parents and families kind of in a situation where they're suddenly home learning. So we put together a series of videos called Literacy on the Loose, and they are up on YouTube, on the Trinity YouTube channel. And they're a set of videos about basically finding opportunities for literacy in the everyday world of the home. So following on from that, kind of at the request of some people at the webinar, we put together a series of short videos on numeracy. So again, looking at how parents could highlight and use opportunities for numeracy just in the everyday of going for walks and doing the cooking and so on. And what we I was having a chat with Francesca recently about something different, and this particular set of videos that we're going to showcase here about home languages and home learning came out of a conversation that she had with Aideen Kelly, also here, in looking at what could we do to support parents whose mother tongue might not be English and who are in the same situation, home learning their children, and maybe looking for opportunities, looking for supports on what to do in the home. So this is where this project comes out of, I suppose. The basic why we would put together videos of this kind at all is that parents are the single biggest influence on a child's development, and right now, when we're all at home together, we're all feeling that very strongly, and parents are under a lot of pressure. So we were just kind of trying to lighten the load a little bit by offering suggestions for what parents might do easily in the home to support their children's learning. Why multilingual families in particular? Well, these numbers here are from the 2016 census. They've shifted a little bit from 2011. I'm sure they'll shift a little bit when they do the census again next year. But essentially, there is a really high volume of, a high proportion of the population, so around 600 million people or sorry, 600,000, 600,000, yeah, 600,000 people who answered the question, do you speak a language other than English or Irish in the home? And they answered yes to that. So that's a huge proportion of our population. And it's a higher proportion, as you'd see, from the number of non-Irish nationalities living in Ireland. So that, you know, there's a lot of people who are their nationality, if you like, is Irish, but they you know, they're using other languages in the home. And this is people working in schools will be very conscious that a number of these will be children and looking to support these children. So just some of the numbers here, the third official, or the one of the official languages of the state, Irish Sign Language, has 4,000 users in the home. Polish, 135,000, over 135,000 households or families, people in families using that language, and Romanian and Lithuanian and Portuguese, which are the languages that we have put together these resources for very high numbers of homes using those languages. So I'm just going to explain a little bit, first of all, about what we've done. And so I'm going to give you a small snapshot of what this looks like. Hold on while I stop sharing that screen and start sharing another screen. Sorry, this is all. And I'm just going to show you, I kind of paste, what we've done is we've put together 3 videos, one for language and literacy, one for numeracy, and one for creativity, for 5 languages. And those languages are English, because we feel that it was very useful to have, for the general population, to have these resources in English and to see what the other language versions are. So we have English, we have Arabic, we have Romanian, Polish, and Brazilian Portuguese. So I'm just going to play. So we have these 3 videos in these 5 different languages. So I've just edited a few little seconds together of these videos in the different languages, so you get an idea of what we're talking about. Oh, hold on a moment. I think I didn't share the audio here, so I have to make sure I'm sharing the audio. Wait one moment. Includes, yeah.
Nauka w domu, sztuka i kreatywność.
هناك العديد من الفرص للإبداع في روتيننا اليومي. بصفتك أحد الوالدين، يمكنك دعم طفلك
usando a língua materna. Siga os interesses do seu filho e faça
ajută copilul nostru să se exprime în mod creativ.
So a very short snapshot there of the videos that we've produced, and we're going to show you the videos in full in English today, and we're going to talk a little bit around them and the supports, you know, looking at how we can use these to support parents in the home. So hold on a moment, I'm going to go back to these slides. So I'm going to pass now to Deirdre Kirwan, because at the heart of all of this is we're looking to support children, and Deirdre has done some, you know, her research was around her particular school. And can I hand over to you, Deirdre, now to bring the voice of those children to us? So if you can take yourself off mute.
Thank you very much, Anne. And yes, I'm very happy to share the voices of some of the children in the school. These quotes that I'm going to share with you from children were taken from interviews that I would have held at the end of the school year with children in 4th, 5th and 6th classes. So I just have a couple of them here. And one of the questions was, how do you think you would feel if you were in a school where your home language was not allowed? And I really think when you listen to what these children have to say, they're speaking in a 2nd or a 3rd language, and they're extremely articulate. So this is how they said they would feel without their home language. A Kurdish child said, "It's so sad because it's like blocking a huge doorway. It's like taking away an advantage of exploring." A German speaker said, "Don't hide away from your own language, because it's what makes you, you, and it's special. And it's like having an arm or a leg. You can't take it away from you." And a child who spoke Yoruba said, "A child without a language is a child without a soul." When they were asked how they felt about using their home languages in school, their answers were quite different. Another Kurdish speaker said, "It allows us to get personal into each other's cultures and languages. It's very useful for friendship, for knowledge. So in many ways, we're all expanding. It makes you feel closer because you have a perspective on that person's point of view." An Irish child who's a native speaker of English gave us an insight from an educational point of view. "Sometimes it's like when we learn a language, it's easier to learn other ones. Sometimes it's not really about which language you're learning, it's more about how to learn a language." So this child was obviously keying into skills learning. And the last one is one that I really like, from a speaker of Yoruba. "It's like when two people speak the same language, there's a kind of bond between both of them."
Thanks, Deirdre. It's really beautiful. Just the depth of expression from that, from the children in your primary school, from when they were doing that research. So I'm going to pass now to Francesca. And Francesca's done, with Mother Tongues, done so much work with families who have multiple home languages. So I suppose, Francesca, can I hand it over to you to take that perspective for a moment? I can, yeah, we need to unmute you.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so I don't have any slides. I'm going to just say a few words about the experience of families. I think in a way, all families have been affected by COVID-19, and for everybody, routines have changed dramatically, and parents have had more time with their children than ever before. And from the point of view of like hearing from families, I think the families that I've been speaking to, or that I met, or that participated in webinars on bilingualism and language development, they all seemed to be quite positive about the fact that this extra time with their children has given them more time to work on their language. And what we know from research, specifically from the Growing Up in Ireland, for example, is that children who have even very strong language skills before they start primary school, they tend to lose these skills over time. And it's quite natural. Children start to speak English more, they interact more, they learn through English, they make friends through English. But so I think this time has been quite special for some families to create a space for a language that sometimes doesn't have a lot of room in the daily routines. On the other hand, I think some families might have wondered how to balance English and the home language, and they might have felt that English, some families were at an advantage because they had more English at home, and maybe their children who were speaking a different language were at a disadvantage. So I think this is where I think these videos, but also I think where teachers and school principals are really important, because it's important that they send a clear message right now, but also all year long, saying that the work that is done in the home language is important and it's valid, and it is part of learning as much as the work that is done in English. So to me, these videos that we're going to watch are not only COVID-19 videos, if you see what I mean. They can be shared all the time, and the message is that the children's language, the family language, is valuable, and the knowledge that these families share every day on all the things that they do really, really matters. And just to conclude, the videos are in different languages, as you said, and they have the potential to reach families who are more comfortable accessing information in their own language rather than in English. But also, this is not only an access issue, it's also a really nice way of communicating. I think it's quite nice. It's what the child said. It's like you bond better through your language. And I know myself, it takes me a second to bond with Italian people, and I never knew what it was. And then, yes, it's the language that we have in common, especially when you're away from Italy. So for families to receive a message from the school in their own language is also a very welcoming message in itself.
Great, thank you, Francesca. So I'm going to hand back to you actually, because you're going to introduce Cathal, and I'll get the first video ready. So off.
Okay, so our first speaker is Cathal Gorman, who's an infant teacher in Griffith Barracks, a multi-denominational school in Dublin 8. And Cathal is going to be talking about the video that is specifically addressing how parents can support children's creativity through their mother tongue. So I don't see Cathal, but I can imagine him.
You want to hit the mute, come off mute there, Cathal? I think you can.
Hi guys.
There you go, great.
Right, hi Cathal. Well, my first question for you is just to say a few things about the key issues addressed in this video.
Yes, so the main, I suppose, issue is to explore interests of the child and to see what interests the child going forward. You know, while they're at home, there's a lot going on. Mom and dad are working. It's a busy household. And again, it's how to get the best, you know, out of the day with your child. And especially with infants, a lot of their time in school is playing and playing together. And that has been taken away from them now. And they're at home with mom or dad and they're looking for your attention all the time. And it's just to find those opportunities that it's not about sitting at home and sitting at a table and, you know, doing worksheets and stuff like that. It's about finding out what their interests are and how you can tap into an interest of the child. Whether it's art, painting, drawing, making stuff. Like I know a lot of people are getting stuff from Amazon at the moment, so there's probably a lot of boxes arriving and you don't know what to do with them. So we have been sending out projects, you know, can you make a robot? Can you make a spaceship? And I must say they're life-sized robots walking cardboard boxes now with loads of design going on, and it's amazing. And again, art is about being creative. I've a lot of Dermot Bannons in my class and, you know, looking at architecture, and Dermot Gavin's looking at how can you make different stuff in the garden, you know, make your name. You can connect it with literacy, connect it with maths, making shapes from sticks out the back and stones. So again, language is not a barrier. It's to embrace that language is the most important thing. When I went to school, I went to an Irish school in junior and senior infants, and I guess it was the culture. You're going into a culture of speaking that language, whether it's Irish, Polish, German. And as a teacher, I'm so lucky to have the opportunity to work with so many diverse, you know, cultures and backgrounds in our school. It's wonderful to hear stories from Poland and fairy tales that I've never heard before. But again, to embrace that language and don't let it feel like it's a barrier. When the children go back to school, they will be able to, you know, jump back on board and they'll probably have a stronger sense of identity and culture because they've been at home for so long, and let them share that culture. Like I know Francesca has been in our school, and last year and this year we did the story of the Three Little Pigs. But again, number one, we did art. So we got different parents, Spanish, Polish, Lithuanian, into the classroom to retell the story of the Three Little Pigs. The children, who are 4 and 5, they all knew the story of the Three Little Pigs. They knew what was going on, but they learned a few key words. And I hear what Francesca said there as well about, you know, when you're living away from home, us Irish, when we go to America, we like to have a chat in Irish because I suppose it's an identity thing as well. So the video it's brilliant. It taps into you know, how you can be creative with your child at home, whether it's through music, art, science, working in the garden. Baking is another huge one. And again, what we have done in our school is we're infant teachers. Zoom calls are great, but they didn't really work for the junior or senior infants. So we got the children to send in photographs of all the fantastic work they've been doing. We put this together in a newsletter, and the children then, it doesn't matter, they don't have to read it, they just look at pictures and they can see all the wonderful stuff that's happening at home. And again, they're making stuff, they're baking, they're using recipes from their own country, and it's just a really nice thing to happen at the moment. So
so we go ahead with the
yeah.
the video. Great.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to you in a moment. Yeah, lovely.
Learning at home, art and creativity. There are many opportunities to get creative in our daily routines. As a parent, you can support your child in expressing their creativity by using your mother tongue. Follow your child's interests and create together with freedom. You might be surprised when you realize how many things you already do are helping your child to express him or herself creatively. Children usually get creative when they have time and space to think without much adult intervention. Drama, painting, mark making, and singing and making sounds with objects from your kitchen are a great way to stay creative and develop literacy and numeracy, spatial awareness, and more importantly, to try something new. Singing songs in any language is an important support to the development of vocabulary and memory. Singing helps concentration, emotional expression, social development, and creativity. You can use actions to help your child understand and remember the meaning of new words. You can also clap to accompany the rhythm of the song. Art can be very relaxing for children and adults alike, as there is no right way of doing things. Even simple things like coloring printed images can be very important to relax and to develop hand-eye coordination, which are important skills to have when learning to write. Children love dressing up, and homemade costumes can be easy to make. Let your child think about what they would like to make and how they would like to do it by using things they have at home. You can make masks, shields, dragons, fairy wings, tutus, hats, handbags, and more using recycled materials such as newspaper, cardboard, and packing materials. Dressing up allows children to enter a magical world and imagine characters and stories. Playing in this way also promotes language development. Once children have created their masks, you can use them to do role play, have a family show, or to tell a story. Children also enjoy building forts and making dens to create a small space where they can hide and play with their imagination. Art is not only in drama and painting, music or writing, but also in science, engineering, and architecture. Follow your child's interests and explore these areas together. For example, you can make beautiful patterns with leaves and sticks and anything you find in the park. Lego and other building blocks also let children explore and be creative, while also developing spatial awareness, manual dexterity, and numeracy. Observing and talking about what you see is also very important to stimulate creativity. When you are out for a walk, observe your surroundings. You can talk about the beauty of the colors found in nature, in buildings, bridges, and landmarks. For example, you can compare an old and a new building and talk to your child about what you find pretty, practical, elegant. Ask your child questions such as, I wonder why the architect chose to use grey stone on this building, or I wonder why all the bridges in this city are so different from one another. As you explore, you can take photos and then use them for a project at home. There are many opportunities to get creative in our daily routines. As a parent, you can support your child in expressing their creativity by using your mother tongue. Follow your child's interests and create together with freedom. You might be surprised when you realize how many things you already do are helping your child to express him or herself creatively.
Right. Yeah. So Cathal, so based on the messages of, I suppose, of this video, what would be the core messages that you would take from this that are specific to parents?
Yeah, I think, again, as I said earlier, I think the core message would be to follow the child's interest. I know teachers are sending out a lot of work and parents might feel a bit bogged down by it all, but to be as creative as you can. I've never known a child in all my years of teaching who is disappointed to be creative, or, you know, so embrace it. Just be art makes me feel good. It makes me feel good to play the guitar, piano, sing a song, even if it's out of tune. But again, and embrace those cultures, learn a new song in your language. And again, teach. It's a good opportunity for the children at home to learn their own culture and their own language. So that video is a great way. It's great at giving you just a snapshot of what possibilities you can achieve with your child at home, and they all link together. Numeracy and literacy. You know, if you're doing a science experiment, oral language is great. You can talk about what ingredients you used. You can add in the Polish words, Italian words, whatever they are. If you're making a pizza, you know, you can learn loads of learning opportunities at home. So not to be afraid, not to be worried about your children. So just try and do something creative every day, and you know, every day is a new day, and have fun. You know, I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, and how can teachers support this learning, especially right now where we're far apart, or over the coming months? What can be the role of teachers in supporting, especially families who may be a bit worried about missing out on the English interaction?
Yeah, like, I think it's important, again, for the teachers to keep up that communication. Like, we communicate on a daily basis with our children in our school. We send out the newsletters to keep them connected, because those children are going to be in the same class for the next 8 years. So I think it's really important that the children stay connected. They see each other, whether it's through a newsletter or maybe an odd Zoom call, but really to stay connected, and they have that, you know, they have that opportunity to see what everyone else is doing, and to share their news, and not to be anxious. And if parents are feeling anxious, to get in contact with their teacher if they feel it's not helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope that's okay.
That's great. Thanks, Cathal. So it's Anne back here, and I'm just going to introduce Aideen. So Aideen, if you can unmute yourself there. So as I said earlier, Aideen Kelly is principal of St. Mary's in Dorset Street, a very linguistically diverse school where over 85% of the children have English as an additional language. And Aideen is looking at the language and literacy video. So maybe, Aideen, if you can tell me, what is the key issues that you feel are being addressed here?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I suppose this video is looking at practical ways that parents can support their child with language and literacy, keeping it fun, keeping it engaging, keeping their interest, as we've talked about already. I think it's also about providing some reassurance to parents. You know, their literacy is very well supported. I think probably maybe the subject that's most supported by schools in terms of giving parents activities to do at home. So there might be parents who are thinking, God, am I doing it right? Is what I'm doing the right thing? Am I doing it already? And I suppose this video, I would hope, would give them the message that yes, what you are doing is the right thing to do. And I think it also answers that question: is there a value in using my home language at home? Should I be trying to speak more English, or should I be using our home language? And I think the message will be very clear, I hope, that home languages have huge value, and that parents should be using them as much as they can at home at this time.
Okay, great, Aideen. Thanks very much for that. And just so here we'll go to the video of for language and literacy.
Learning at home language and literacy. There are many opportunities to have fun with literacy in our daily routines. Follow your child's interests and use it to plan activities together that get your child reading, writing, and talking. You might be surprised when you realized how many things you already do are helping your child to develop language skills. You might wonder, should I be using my own language at home? Yes! Learning their own language well at home helps children with the school language too. With a very young child, you can play with sounds and words. Reading together is a great starting point. When you are reading, point at pictures and talk about the story and the characters. Involve your child by asking open questions such as, what do you think will happen next? Or how does this character feel? Making I wonder statements can really help open discussion. I wonder where they came from. Look online and at your local library and search for children's books in your own language or bilingual books. Tell your child stories. Young children love to hear about you and your family, so you can use old photographs and tell stories about your family members and about yourself as a child. When children start to read, it is important to keep them interested in reading for pleasure and also show them that being able to read is a really useful skill to have. If your child is just starting to read, you can play games with sounds and letters. For example, you can ask your child to look for something that starts with the sound sh. Or, on your walk, you can ask them to read letters on the shop front. When children are getting more comfortable with reading and writing, praise their expertise and get them to use the new skills to help you. For example, your child can help you to write a shopping list, or a list of ingredients needed for a meal, or they can help you to read the bus timetable. Ask your child questions about how to write or how to read words and praise them for their success. Remember that if children learn to read and write in your mother tongue, these skills will be transferred to English. So don't worry if right now your child is using your language more than English. You can also help your child to use both language consciously by comparing the sounds of your language with the sounds of English and Irish, looking for words in your language that are like words in English or that are really different, thinking about how your language works and how that is the same or different from English. Let children choose their own favorite activities and let them find what interests them. Sometimes in school there is not enough time to really explore every interest in depth, but right now when schools are out, your child might want to dedicate more time to a project they feel really passionate about. For example, your child might be interested in the life cycle of their favorite animal, or they might want to trace back the history of their family. Encourage them to write notes and put down their thoughts into words. Another good idea is to keep a diary during the time away from school to record their routines, or maybe to track some observations about the change in nature, etc. Literacy is in many of the things that we do, and that includes sharing stories, playing games, making notes, telling or making up jokes, doing internet searches, sending texts, letters or emails, or debating an issue. You may wonder if it is better to work on the language spoken at school, but the good news is that all the things your child learns in your mother tongue can be transferred to English. So keep using your native language and your child will greatly benefit.
So Aideen, we've had the video there with lots of input about kind of language and literacy ideas. What would you say has been the key aspects of language and literacy kind of covered here?
I think there are a few. I suppose it's one of the key things is that using your home language is just as valuable as doing activities in English. So we want children to enjoy themselves. We want them to be focused on things that they're interested in, that they have choice in the things that they do. This is a great time, as the video said, for projects and passions and finding the thing that you're really into. And whether you're researching and doing reading in any of those languages, whether you're doing your writing in a different language, all of the skills that you develop in your home language, you can transfer to English. And so we're looking for children to spend time, as they have all of this beautiful time with their family and their parents at home, take advantage of every second of that. Share stories in your home language, whether they're oral stories that you know from when you were a child that you can share with them, whether it's you have books and storybooks in your language that you can share. There are loads of opportunities online to find dual language books that you could look at together, or stories in your home language. Having all of those conversations, all of the skills that you are doing, all of those opportunities that you're giving them to do those things in their home language, they will be able to transfer. All of those things about, you know, it could be reading from left to right or top to the bottom of the page. It could be the same in English. It could be different. You could be in Arabic and reading the other way, but it's about making the point. This is how we do it in this language, and this is how it's the same or different in English. And just finding ways to have a context, I suppose, to the reading and writing that they're doing, whether it's because they're really interested or because you're doing it to communicate, maybe, you know, writing letters or sending a postcard to family members who maybe they haven't seen their grandparents, or you can't get back to your home country over the summer even though you really wanted to, and, you know, using that opportunity to do some writing together, to send messages to family. In our school, some of the children have been putting together time capsules, and that's been a really nice opportunity for them to write in English or in their home languages about things that are happening right now in the world, and where they are, and their favorite books at the moment, and what they're listening to, and what music is good, and all of those things are nice ideas for things. But anything really that gets children reading and writing in any language is valuable right now.
Yeah. And I suppose you're hammering it home there, but what's your key message for the parents?
Use it, use it, use it. Use your home language as much as you can.
Yeah, exactly. And you, as principal, and, you know, very linguistically diverse school, what would you say for teachers? What should be their what would be your advice or takeaway for them?
Yeah, I'd be hoping that teachers are using this opportunity to also be very open to children using their home languages, and encouraging them to bring that into the classroom. If you're doing online classrooms, or we use the Seesaw app, for example, so children are sending us their learning from home all of the time. And it is a really big place. Linguistic diversity and language awareness is a huge place in the new primary language curriculum. There are excellent support materials, videos and articles for teachers to support them. But I think it's about having a positive attitude. It's about teachers also being open and seeing the value of children's home languages, and encouraging the children to see the same and making connections. And I think it's an opportunity for teachers to show themselves as learners. We were doing a really simple gratitude exercise at the end of last week with children in our school, where we were asking them to say thank you, but to somebody in there who had helped them that week. Could have been a teacher, could have been their friend, could have been their adult at home, but to say it in their home language. And we were learning ourselves. So we were learning how to say salamat in Tagalog, and mulțumesc in Romanian. They're the two that I learned. You are modeling to the children that you need to practice. You need them to record it so that you can hear it a few times. The next day you have to ask them, tell me that one again, say that again. What was that? You know, what was that again? Practice, let me practice my pronunciation. And all of those, showing them all of those things is modeling for them how they need to do it. So they need to see their teachers being interested in what's happening.
Great. And I should say one thing just as a plug. So Aideen's school has some beautiful examples of multilingual classroom practice up on the NCCA website, right? Some really nice practice there. Yeah. So I'll hand over to Francesca for the final video. Thanks, Aideen. You're on mute. We have to take you off mute. Sorry.
No worries. I do this all the time. Yeah, so the final video focuses on numeracy. And so, well, first of all, I wanted to thank Deirdre Kirwan, because starting with the pupils' words is really important. And especially now that we're so feeling like we're so far apart, it is really good to hear not only what's going on in the schools, but how children feel and how important it is to them to continue to use their own languages, because it's not just the language exercise, it's a huge part of their life and their identity. So we're going to play this video on numeracy, but before we do that, I'd like to ask Deirdre, what are the key issues in this numeracy video that you've identified?
Hello, Francesca. Well, the key issues that I identified in this particular video, and also in the numeracy in the Now videos, there are 5 areas. The first is play. In other words, that learning is enjoyable, and play is very important for young people to learn. There's absolutely no question in the video but that it is important to use your home language, whatever that may be. So that's a given. No worries there. Use your home language. And another very important issue that's addressed in that particular video is to find out where the children's interests lie, because that's, you know, when we find their interest, we've struck gold. They will be happy to work from that, and it makes learning much more attractive. The other thing that the video shows us is activating children's awareness of mathematics, that it's all around us. It's in the home, on the street, the garden, the farm, in nature, wherever we are, there are opportunities to key into mathematical talk and thought. So it's not all about desk work. And I think this is really important, particularly for parents who may have memories of doing maths in school and maybe not really liking it. But it's quite different nowadays, the way it's taught, although of course there is desk work as well. And then the video also gives us suggestions on how to capitalize and build on opportunities to learn mathematical concepts, numbers, measurements, dimensions, everything else. And I think in learning those concepts, we also have to remember that there is an actual language of mathematics, and it's important that learners learn the language of mathematics, like bigger than, smaller than, greater than, and you know, plus and minus and all of that kind of thing. So I think there's some of the things to look out for in this video.
Thank you.
So we'll go to the video here now.
Learning at home, numeracy. There are many opportunities to have fun with numbers and measurements in our daily routines. As a parent, you can support your child in their learning of numeracy concepts by using your mother tongue. Numerical concepts, reasoning, and mathematical logic transcend language. Follow your child's interests and use it to plan activities that stimulate logical and mathematical reasoning. You might be surprised when you realize how many things you already do are helping your child to learn about numbers, measurements, dimensions, distance, weight, and volume. With a very young child, you can play with objects you have at home and sort them from largest to smallest. You can sort anything from bottles to pots and pans and socks and t-shirts. Get your child to identify the smallest and the biggest object and encourage them to explain why they gave that answer. You can also look for shapes when you go for a walk and play a game to see who can spot the most shapes. Start by showing your child the rectangular shape of your front door or your window, and then encourage him or her to find others. On your next walk, tell your child that you are playing a game to see who can spot the most rectangles. Point at street signs, post boxes, and other rectangles, and keep counting them as you find them. Counting money is another important skill children can have fun with. You can play with coins, sort them, and do addition and subtractions with them. Your kitchen table can become a shop too. Let your child choose what shop they would like to have. They can write a price tag for each product. Then you can take turns for who needs to be the shopkeeper and the customer. use real coins, and depending on the age of the child, you can also work on giving change. Cooking and baking are also a great way to develop mathematical reasoning. You may not be thinking about it, but when you cut food in equal parts, you are doing fractions. To talk about fractions, you can use food that has a round shape like pancakes, pizza, or wraps, or squares like chocolate or cheese. Before cutting the food, ask your child, how would you cut this in 3 equal parts? The following time, ask how they would cut it into 4, 5, or more equal parts. When you are cooking or baking, get your child to help to measure liquids, weigh flour or other ingredients, and figure out proportions. If you are using a recipe for 4, ask your child to help you to measure ingredients for the same recipe for 6 or 8. You may wonder if it is better to work on numeracy in the language spoken at school, but the good news is that all the work you do in your mother tongue can be transferred to English, so keep using your native language and your child will greatly benefit.
So, Deirdre, again, what are the key messages for parents to take from this video?
Well, the first key message obviously is the whole area of making learning enjoyable. And we use the word play, and a colleague for whom of many years standing for whom I have the greatest respect has always said play is the work of the young child, because it's through play that children learn. And if we even think of ourselves as adults and our hobbies, we practice our hobbies because we enjoy them, and the more we practice, the better we get at them. And it's the very same with children and play. Like a particular musician down in West Kerry who says, I never practice music, but I play it every day. So it's something that's to be done for enjoyment. And so play by its nature is enjoyable. And I think when we're working with our children, we need to remember that. And if it's turning into something that's not enjoyable or that's becoming stressful, just leave it, walk away, come back to it another day, or come back to it in a different way. And of course, play at home doesn't have to mirror the way work is done in school. In fact, it shouldn't, because there are lots and lots of different ways to learn. And even though, you know, at this time during COVID, when there are huge stresses and that kind of thing, as parents, it does give us an opportunity to link in with our children. We know and we have a very good opportunity to find out our child's preferred way of learning. So, and if we can come at the learning through that way, all to the good, it'll be much more successful. When we're in the kitchen, when we're in the garden, planting seeds, whatever activity that we're involved in, we may be thinking of a particular mathematical concept, you know, whether it's counting, whether it's area, whether it's shape, whatever it is. But the child doesn't necessarily know that that's what's on our minds, but they're actually still learning as they're doing. I think one thing is very important when we're involved with our children in a play situation is that while we may know the answer we're looking for, it's very important that we don't know everything, that we give them a chance to tell us, because this kind of play situation with our children is a reciprocal one, where we're trying to share thoughts and that kind of thing. So sometimes it's as well to say things like, gosh, I can't really remember what was the name of that shape, or I wonder, where did we see this already? And because, you know, it's important to give them a lead role in it as well. And that brings me into the second very important thing out of this video, which is the whole thing of finding the child's interest, and we do that by listening. And unfortunately, I have to say, I am a parent, I am a teacher, and as parents and teachers, we just talk too much. Now, we do that for the right reasons, because we want to help our children, we want to convey knowledge, but in fact, what we really need to do is listen. We need to listen a lot more, because by listening to what they're saying, we're going to get to know a lot more about them than we might already know. And if you listen, you may actually hear good suggestions from them about how the learning can be carried out. And after all, if it's their idea, they may be much more well disposed towards carrying it out anyway. And when we tap into their interest and curiosity, that's when we get the engaged, motivated learner that we want. And this brings me to thoughts of one of the videos where there are very young children engaged in activities that explore shapes and sequencing and that kind of thing in the numeracy in the Now videos. And when you look at these videos and you see children who are really young, one of them is just over a year old, the other is about 4 years old, I think, and the intense level of concentration, the engagement, the interest that those children have in what they're doing. This, as parents and as teachers, is what we want to capture. And if we can capture that concentration and bring it into our school learning, that's you know, when we really get children who begin to drive their own learning. So by harnessing that, by tapping into their interests and helping them to build on the skills that they are already bringing to the task, that's when we're really, you know, on a winner. And of course, this all brings us to the whole issue of language, because if we're starting from what the child already knows, how much closer can we get to what the child already knows than his or her existing knowledge of her own language? And I really want to reassure parents whose first language is not English, please use your home language, because the better your child becomes at his or her home language, we're talking in this instance about numeracy, about mathematics, the better the child comes to understand the concepts in his or her own language, the better able they will be able to deal with schoolwork when they go back to school. And then what they do is, all they have to do is transfer the concepts into another language. They don't actually have to start learning the concepts in those languages. There's another issue here. You as the parent are the expert at your language. So that's why it's really important for you to use that language, because all of the nuances that come into language for the nurturing of children as well, we do that best in the language that we are best at ourselves. And at the heart of all learning is a good relationship where we understand each other, and as parents, we're in the best possible position to do that. Of course, when teachers and parents, school and parents work together, that's when we have the best situation for the children. There's one other thing I just want to say about language, which is really, really important, and that is the whole area of writing. And depending on the stage that the child is at, you know, if they're able to write simple words or whatever, and you're doing a shopping list, or you're planting seeds in the garden or something like that, you can write little labels for the seeds in your own language. If you want to, you can explore them in English as well, but it's much more important to know them in your own language in the first place, and write them. If the child is capable of doing so, get the child to write them and help them. They may not be able to write in their home language, but you can write wallflowers, crocus, cabbage, whatever it is that you're planting, and they can look at that word. They know what it is from speaking and from understanding, and then they see it written and they begin to learn it that way. So writing is extremely important for embedding language learning. And as children move, you know, as they improve, as they get older, as their literacy skills develop, if you want to, whatever their particular area of interest is, and I'm just going to stick with the garden for this, the flowers, the vegetables in your garden, one column in Romanian, the other column in English, and the other column in any other language that you might like, that you might want to explore, because this is where we begin to build our plurilingual skills that we all have and that support our learning.
Yeah. Thank you, Deirdre. So you've answered all of my questions about the parents and the teachers. I think there's a question here also, if I may just ask you another question. It's about, and it kind of links in, because initially I asked you to talk about parents, but I think this is, parents right now are almost like teachers, but we always are anyway.
Yes.
And that's the whole message. But also we have a bigger role right now. And there was a question in the chat about how to contextualize the mother tongues in the context of school language policies. So the use of the mother tongue in the context of what individual school language policies.
Well, in terms of my own school, what we did was, the first thing we said was that every child has has many positive things to bring to their own education. And as I said earlier, if we build on what the child already knows, that means we build on their home language. So that means bringing their home language into the school. And that is good for the child who speaks Romanian, Italian, Russian, whatever the language may be. But it's also really good for the other children in the school as well, because what it does is it becomes a resource for everybody in terms of language awareness, in terms of finding the connections and similarities between languages. And it also opens up the whole area of actually valuing language itself and different languages, because when you think about it, language is the conduit through which we learn everything in school, and so I think it's very important, and I totally understand the teacher's point of view in this, because in a school like mine or in a school like Aideen's, where you have a very high proportion of children who speak languages other than English, teachers may feel overwhelmed and say, but I can't speak these languages. And of course we can't. I couldn't. But what I can do is I can value them, I can welcome them, I can incorporate them into what's happening in the school. As Jim Cummins has said, if you ignore their language, you ignore the child. But by making everybody's language part of the plurilingual aspect of the classroom, it gives everybody a chance to benefit from that, because it opens up a whole new world for everybody.
That's wonderful, Deirdre. And I think on that note, we're at 4 o'clock, so I might just kind of summarize a couple of things from today, and I know there's a couple of questions. Maybe if anyone has a burning question, you can put it in the chat, and otherwise, or certainly feel free to contact me, and I can channel it in the right direction afterwards. But I suppose some of the main themes that were coming up today are definitely about integration across the curriculum. I mean, everyone talked about that, how with any kind of learning you're tapping into numeracy, literacy, and everything else. Certainly about playing to the interest of the child. And as a parent myself, it's so great when that happens. It's just lovely. It's very hard when you can't make it work, but it's a wonderful thing to hit that sweet spot. And I suppose that one of the biggest things coming through here is definitely the value. So just that value of language in general, as you said, about it underpinning everything about learning, but about languages and I suppose one of the key things we were trying to get across here is just how valuable it is to the child, to the family, to society, to the school and everything, to put the genuine worth on that resource. And I suppose one thing just to add here is, as part of this, with Mother Tongues, we produced a set of translations of kind of key messages from schools to parents. So they're up on the School of Education website and the Mother Tongues website. So if you're looking to say, condolences, happy birthday, school is back, or whatever, in Lithuanian, Polish, what else was it, Francesca? Spanish for these ones, Portuguese and Arabic.
Yeah.
Those messages are there that you can just cut and paste them, just to show, as Deirdre was saying, that you might know very tiny bits, and Aideen also, those tiny bits that can be so valuable. and as you know, Cathal was saying, drawing those in through narratives and all the rest also. So I know Colm has a comment there around gender and intergenerational learning, and very definitely, you know, the family environment is that opportunity to reach out to older members, you know, to grandparents and aunties and uncles and so on, reaching in. Cathal, there's a question about your school. So it's Griffith Barracks multi-denominational school, right? In the school there in the grounds of Griffith Barracks, lovely site for a school. So unless anybody has a final comment or question, I might just we might just draw to a close for today. We're just a couple of minutes past 4. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has joined us, and thank you very much to Francesca and Mother Tongues, or the team in Mother Tongues, for the great work they did with this, putting this together, and to Cathal O'Gorman, to Aideen Kelly, and to Deirdre Kirwan for coming on board and really interesting ideas and discussion from today. So thank you all, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.